Are you wondering which instinctual stackings are the most compatible for you in your work environment, in your friend groups, in your best friend, and in your family? Then keep watching this video. Welcome back to Typevolution, where we talk about how to evolve with your personality type. If you haven't seen it already, I have made a video about the romantic compatibility before, so if you want to watch that, go to that first. And this is the follow-up because this is about platonic relationships, people you interact with on a more daily basis without being a couple. There is a difference between romantic and platonic compatibility to some extent when it comes to the instinctual stackings. In the previous video, I talked a lot about being in the same flow, and as a short recap, being in the same instinctual flow means having a stacking with another stacking that has the same order of the instincts in terms of flow. So there's the Synflow, SP, SO, SX is the flow, and this Contraflow has SP, SX, SO. So the stackings that match up in Synflow are usually the most compatible with each other and the ones in Contraflow with each other. I talked about that a lot in the previous video. However, here it's a bit different. 4 distinctions. The first one is going to be about work environments. The second one is going to be about friend groups or just hanging out casually with people. The third one is going to be about closer friend groups and family units. And the closest relation in this segment is going to be about the best friend, someone who is like a BFF or friend for life. So the first one, work environments. You could go with the same principle again of having the same flows together. So that would mean, for example, SOSX with SXSP and SPSO being in the same work group, work environment, and so forth. And SXSO, SPSX, and SOSP being in the same unit at work. However, I found that depending on either the size of the company, the different roles that they are in, or the overall marketing or focus of the brand, you can benefit from having both flows in the same work environment, in the same company. Mostly the opposite flow is going to be beneficial if you want to have different perspectives and to appeal to a very large and diverse group of people. But if you don't want to do that, then sticking with the same flow is probably going to be better. It's also going to create a more cohesive and specific brand. It also depends a lot on what kind of work you are doing. What is the main focus of the company? And based on that, have instinctual stackings in there that meet the company's main instinct. Let me just give an example to make it easier to understand. So let's say the company is about fitness. So then it would make sense that most employees would have the self-preservation instinct first or second. However, there might be a few exceptions. So if you have a very big company who's doing fitness or you want to expand, then you could include someone who is self-preservation last even. Let's say social sexual, who is doing social media marketing, for example. This is something that a lot of them do. And this is where, as I said, you can have an exception. And let's take another example also. Usually social sexual or sexual social would make the most sense in a media and entertainment arena, but sexual self-preservation can also be useful. So once again, depends on the role. So if the job requires, for example, financial advising or looking at resources, then someone who has the self-preservation instinct second, sometimes first, could also be a good idea for like a manager or something. For specific groups, yes, it is best if one flow predominates, because then the people there are going to go along with each other more or better. But as I said, there can be exceptions. It's okay in a work environment because you are not going to be so close with each other. So if you focus on a specific instinct, it's fine if it's not like super compatible on a more close level. Okay, the second point is more casual friends, acquaintances, having a friend group that you're not very close to, but you hang out with them more or less regularly. So I would say anything from meeting up like once a year or even less to once a week. based on a specific pastime or hobby is usually in this arena. It's similar to my previous advice. Yes, if it's the same flow, that's great, but that's not necessary as long as people can connect on one instinct. And that depends on the pastime. So if it's a certain, let's say, group that is about working out together or doing a sports activity together, then usually, naturally, most people in it would be self-preservation instinct first or second. Many people have a friend group that they go out with, so like clubbing or just hanging out together, having fun. And in that case, this stuff is actually sexual instinct related, sometimes social instinct related. If it's in the same flow, that's going to make it better. If it's not, then usually you're going to focus on one instinct or another. Recently, I was part in some kind of friend group on the weekend, and I noticed that the one friend, my colleague, is probably sexual self-preservation. And that friend also has other friends, and I noticed they are probably also sexual self-pres or some kind of combination that has self-preservation in there, because they have like also a sports background, and they would talk about that. And it can make me feel a little bit left out, a little bit, because my instinct self-preservation is last. But I think it's possible that we are in the same flow, so it was fine. Like it wasn't really too awkward. So yeah. Okay, let's just go to the next point. So in the last video, I talked a lot about which instinctual stackings should avoid each other. But when it comes to the work environment, when it comes to a casual friend group, it doesn't really matter actually. It's not that bad. You can actually have stackings in it that are opposite or that should avoid each other when it comes to a close relationship or like dating. But if it's just based on a specific instinct, a specific task or focus or goal, then it's fine. It can actually go pretty well, especially if the people in it have compatible Jungian personality types. Close friend group or a family, a close family. In that case, I move away from just focusing on one particular instinct and I go back to suggesting same flow. In this case, same flow would be best and easiest and most optimal. It's the most harmonious. You are on the same wavelength because you all agree on how each instinct is connected to the next one. So in this case, being in the same flow is usually best. It's gonna help a lot. But of course, especially with family, you cannot really control it. You cannot really control what the instinctual stacking of your children is going to be. So in that case, it's a matter of luck or not. But when it comes to a close friend group, it helps a lot if you have the same flow, if you can control that. Usually you can't, but it's... Okay, there's like two angles to this. One angle is really strategizing, so being like, okay, I'm just going to focus on people who are on the same flow as me and trying to make that a close friend group. And the second one is not about strategy and more about going along with the flow of life. Whatever happens, happens, and it naturally develops or not. So in that case, you would not strategize, but you would just naturally fall into certain friend groups and become closer in them based on, for example, the instinctual stackings. For example, I can say from my experience, what kind of prevents me from getting closer to a friend group that I'm a part of, more or less, it's like the casual friend group. What holds me back there is there's a lot of people in there who have an opposite Jungian personality type. An opposite, I mean, from a type that has no functions in common with me. So that's in there, and also people who have the opposite instinctual stacking. So I noticed that that has an impact on how close I feel aligned to that friend group. But once again, it kind of depends also on other factors, of course. The pinnacle of Platonic relationships is a best friend, a friend for life, BFF. So based on my experience, based on my understanding of the theory, it goes kind of back to my previous video. Usually the same instinctual stacking ensures that, because you will naturally have the same kind of life priorities when it comes to instincts. With all the previous other examples, it can be enough if you only focus on one instinct, and you can even be in opposite flows for that to be fine. But it's very much, these other relations are all really based on a very specific function or topic or goal that connects you. And this can, of course, also be the case with a best friend. But what I see with close or best friendships is it might start out with like this one particular function or this particular goal, but it evolves over time, and it starts to cover all areas. You start to connect on all areas of life. And this mostly happens if it's a person who has the same instinctual stacking as you. Whereas with all the other things, either the friendship is really only based on the specific activity, or it just falls apart, goes away once the activity or the goal has been accomplished. Whereas with my social sexual friend, one of my best friends, or maybe even my best friend, we've been good friends for years now. So it's really different, and we have the same instinctual stacking. So this really can make a difference. Exceptions to that could possibly be also, once again, same flow, or having the same instinct last, but the other two reversed. So that would be a contraflow pairing. I don't see it as often, but that can also be the case. To recap or to summarize, it really depends a lot on what is your specific goal when it comes to this platonic connection. Is it work related? Do you have a specific task you have to accomplish? And how close is your bond supposed to be? And based on that, this is how it usually develops. So what I'm saying here is both something you could strategize or just observe. It's like a natural dynamic of life that plays out in front of you, regardless if you strategize it or not. This is what I have found, for myself at least. So this is just what naturally happens in life. If you struggle with finding, let's say, a good friend, for example, then you mostly just have to follow what naturally interests you, and then based on that gravitate towards certain people. As I said, with the best friends, usually there is a certain goal or task in the beginning, but then you realize, oh, we also care about these instincts in the same way, so that helps. With other things, with other people, as I said, it's very much only goal or task specific, and then once that is accomplished or that's done, then it kind of nothing happens really, or you don't really become best friends. So yeah, okay, this is basically my take on it. If you want me to type you, or if you want me to coach you or consult you, can find all the information on my blog, typevolution.com/services. And I see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.